I'm very happy to be here, and I would like to thank Scuba University and Professor Curino for making this possible. I hope that also market design dissipates as a mainstream work which affects policy within Japan, like it did in United States and many European countries recently. And I'm hopeful of that. Maybe in my last part of the lecture I will maybe talk about that as well. But first, today what I would like to do is that I would like to start with a very brief introduction to market design first. So let me go back. Okay. No, I think this is the correct one, sorry. And then just let me make a brief introduction to what market design is and what do we do in this particular thing. Actually, one maybe better name could be for market design could be market substitute design, in a way that when there are problems with this decentralized markets, we have to intervene and create. It could be some institutions, it could be decentralized regulators, etc., so that the markets function better in terms of economic criteria. So, especially within the 15 years, or maybe let's say 20 years, economists, and especially game theorists in particular, have started to take a substantial role in market design and economic design in general. So I guess the main difference between theory is that theory really likes generalizations, abstractions, to get the most general result possible, while market design involves taking care of the detail. Because every market has a different set of rules usually, which you cannot really generalize. And we have to make use of details, otherwise we will not be able to achieve, I would say, the desired outcomes, and we won't be able to really implement what we are doing in the field, because it won't be realistic enough. Basically, game theory is very useful in the sense that it studies the rules of the game, or institutions, or markets, and how people would behave under that. So, in a way, game theory is a very useful tool to frame market design. But it's not the only tool. When I say game theory, I talk about mechanism design, social choice theory, the part of the social choice which deals with design of mechanisms. They will be all working together, and maybe experiments, maybe computational tools to supplement the analytical toolbox of the theorist. Okay, so I will give like a few examples, because we don't have too much time, of how what have happened, and actually I won't go to the in details. Okay, so this is a very incomplete list of what people have done to change the real-life functioning of markets. These are economists who have done, and they have introduced some new problems. Beginning with Alvin Roth in the entry-level labor markets, medical doctor matching. Matching theory was discovered to be already in use and then retooled to be used in that particular market. And later on, signaling in matching markets was a prominent area which influenced, for example, PhD hiring in the United States uses versions of this signaling device. Probably the most direct use of the theory without too much change, and one-to-one getting very clean results have happened in public school choice, where today my colleague Tayfun Sönmez will talk about in detail, and I will talk about kidney exchange, which was another area. Recently, for example, I was fortunate to work on adoption of kids. So this is different because this involves match recommendation instead of just matching. So it's kind of a bit like online dating sites where you get many recommendations, but it doesn't really give you the exact match at the end of the day. There are other markets economists have worked on, and they are, I guess, waiting to be used in real life. Probably over time this will happen. There's a list of this here. I will not go to any details. But I think one important thing about market design is the following, so it's not a one-way loop from theory to market design. Market design actually creates a huge feedback, positive feedback back to theory, because by looking at real-life markets, we understand, we discover very interesting phenomena which helps us to develop new theoretical models. And then in turn, it feeds back to market design. So it creates a positive feedback loop, if you wish. So I guess that's the biggest contribution of market design to theory, to come up with interesting ideas which have not been theoretically modeled yet, and create new tools to address that. Okay? If you don't create those new tools, you will not be able to solve that problem. Okay, so after this brief introduction, let me talk about design of matching markets. But let me start with the theory of allocation and exchange of indivisible resources, which is kind of the basic building block from mechanism design and social choice theory, which helped us to come to this day. So what I will do is that I will look at models without money. Okay, for some reason, for different reasons, money may not be used in transactions. It could be institutional reasons, it should be legal reasons, it could be actually, or money may not be enough to clear the market because money could be of secondary nature. Maybe the time is too little to use the market, okay, because there are so many details and there are many prices, the prices do not adjust in time to clear the market. So in those cases, what we usually, I guess the matching theory comes into play in that sense. From the mechanism design perspective, we can design matching clearing houses which will make these markets function much better. So in that sense, I will talk about mostly probably the first 4 or 5 of these innovations. The slides are available. I will probably not be able to finish all of them, but I will continue as much as I can. So I will begin with common ownership economies. Then I will talk about private ownership economies. Then I will talk about mixed ownership economies. And if time permits, maybe a little bit on lotteries and lottery mechanisms. And finally, I will talk about more like axiomatic mechanisms and how all of these can be combined in maybe through some axiomatics. So let's begin with the common ownership economies. So although I will give you the model, I will explain what this model is for. So although we can attribute this model to Hilland and Zeckhauser, I'm not sure, maybe they did it formally, but this is one of the most ancient problems people have faced. There's a set of agents denoted by this capital set A, and there's a set of houses denoted by this capital set H. Okay? So if you wish, what are these houses? Although they are called houses, they are indivisible goods. That's the important thing. And we would like to allocate these indivisible goods to people, like offices, parking spaces, dormitory rooms, school seats, course seats. And the important thing is that these indivisible goods, the houses, are collectively owned. So everybody has right on these houses. So it's kind of not very meaningful to sell it, or it may not be able to sell it, like if we are talking about organs, for example. Okay? And each agent A has a strict preference relation over the houses. denoted by script of A. All right. So script of A will induce a weak preference relation. So the weak preference relation says the following. A house H is at least as good as H prime if and only if H is better than H prime or H and H prime are the same house. So we don't allow for indifferences in the basic model, which has been extended for a few different reasons. One being that many applications require reporting of the strict list rather than indifferences. The other is it is more cumbersome to start with that model. And for the people who are more theoretically minded, the results are less elegant in that domain. But all of these three, in a way, point to the same direction, to the beginning point of the problem. I already talked about real-life applications. I guess one of the most important applications, although this is a more dynamic version of this, is organ allocation, where there's a deceased donor waiting list and patients are waiting for an organ. Dormitory room allocation at universities all over the world use this kind of principles. They don't really sell the dormitory rooms. They just allocate them through different methods. I guess many places use this kind of parking space and office allocation schemes. I guess you can say that this is maybe the first scarce resource allocation problem society have realized without. So we have, everybody owns certain indivisible goods, we would like to allocate them to people. So what is the best way of doing that? So throughout the talk, I will fix A and H, and only the problem will be denoted through the preference profile. I will call this script, okay? So basically, an outcome of a house allocation problem will be a matching. So a matching is a map, a one-to-one and onto function in this case, because I assume the number of the agents and the number of the houses are the same. For simplicity, you can extend this, okay, such that each agent is going to be matched with a house, as no house will be matched with two different agents. Okay, so mu of A will be the assigned house under matching mu for agent A. So M be the set of matchings, and a matching is, I guess, the weakest notion of one of the weakest notions of non-wastefulness and efficiency is parity efficiency. I guess many economists agree. If we can satisfy this, this should be the minimum thing we should achieve. So I will say a matching mu is parity efficient if there is no other matching nu such that each agent weakly prefer nu A to mu A for all A, and nu A is better than mu A for at least one agent A. Okay, so we will talk about a mechanism or a rule, if you wish, you want to call it, is going to be a mapping, a procedure that assigns a matching for each house allocation problem denoted by the preferences here. Okay. So first we start with deterministic ones. So I specifically talk about the deterministic mechanisms. So what are some important aspects one may consider for a mechanism? What are some important properties? Okay. One is strategy proofness, I guess, or domain strategy incentive compatibility, whichever one you want to call it. So a mechanism phi is domain strategy incentive compatible or strategy proof if for any profile script there is no way agent A and no preference relation for that agent script prime of A, such that by reporting script prime of A, agent A, while the others are reporting whatever they have, will get a better house than what he would get on, when he reported his true preferences. Okay? So script of A will be his true preferences, so he will improve under his true preferences by reporting manipulation. So why is this a desirable property? First of all, if a mechanism is strategy proof, no agent will have an incentive to try to game the system. Okay? So he will not have to make mental calculations to go also what is the best way of playing this mechanism reporting game where everyone is reporting their preferences and the centralized authorities allocating students to schools. So in that sense, that relieves the burden of the students quite a bit, or the agents quite a bit when they are reporting their preferences, because they don't have to, all they need to do is, it's their best interest to report their preferences. And another aspect is that, well, we will talk about desirable properties of mechanisms, but those desirable properties of mechanisms only hold under true preferences. If the agents are playing some game and reporting incorrect preferences, the mechanism may not find that desirable outcome for the society, because it will only get the reported preferences. Because, as you will see, there is an informational asymmetry. There is a central planner who would like to implement a good outcome for the society, but he doesn't know, or she doesn't know, the preferences of the people. He needs to collect these preferences to find a good outcome. Okay? But he can only collect whatever they report to him. So he will find the best outcome according to what is reported, which may not be the best outcome, whatever the best means, for the whole society for their true preferences. In that sense, incentive compatibility, dominant strategy incentive compatibility makes the life quite easy on part of designing a mechanism in the end of the day, at the end of the day. Okay? So Pareto efficiency is defined like the matchings, but for each problem, the mechanism has to find a Pareto efficient matching. That's the definition. Okay? And if we have time, we'll talk about lottery mechanisms. So I guess these two properties, Pareto efficiency and implementing a Pareto efficient outcome without too much burden to the people playing the game, will be our objective. Okay? Then we will build on top of that for other objectives maybe. So let's begin with the basic model of serial dictatorship, mechanism of serial dictatorship, okay, on this house allocation problem model, okay. So the theoretical properties of this model were, this kind of allocation scheme started to be invested by Swenson in Social Choice and Welfare in 1994 and then 1999, okay. So a serial dictatorship, so some people also call it priority mechanism, which is either is fine. I guess this is a better name for the outside world, because the other has dictatorship in it and it may sound bad, right? But actually, let's call it priority mechanism maybe in that sense. So a serial dictatorship is defined through a priority ordering of agents. A priority ordering is just ordering agents, okay, according to some queue. It's also called queue allocation in that sense. And this priority ordering function tells that, let's say it's called f. F of I is the agent with the ith highest priority in the list. So f of 1 is the highest priority agent in the list. Okay? So I will define, so let's fix a priority ordering. I will define a mechanism using this priority ordering. Let's call that pi of f. F is the fixed priority ordering. Okay? So that I will call a serial dictatorship. So pi of f of script is a matching when the problem underlying is script, it will find that outcome. So how do we find it? It's a very easy iterative procedure. The first agent f1 gets her first choice. The second agent f2 gets her first choice, excluding the house assigned to the first agent, so on and so forth. The kth agent fk gets her first choice, excluding the houses assigned to the agents before fk. Okay? So that's the definition of the priority ordering. So this is a, again, this is a a serial dictatorship is just a mechanism, it's a function, mathematical function if you wish. It's in a way a procedure, an algorithm to find its outcome. Okay? So we will usually, in this area of economics, Many outcomes will be calculated through iterative functions, iterative procedures, which like algorithms, if you wish. So many times people use rule, mechanism, algorithm interchangeably, although they may mean different things. Here I use rule and mechanism as the same thing, and algorithm is a way to calculate its outcome. Okay? So here's our first theorem about good properties of serial dictatorship. A serial dictatorship is strategy proof. Let's prove that. Actually, it's a very easy proof, so let's do it. So let F be a priority ordering and pi F be the induced serial dictatorship. So it's very easy. By iteration, let's consider each agent one at a time, and let's see whether any of these agents can manipulate if he had reported a different preference. Okay? So let's look at F1. F1 is the top guy. Already, he gets his top choice according to his reported preference. So he cannot do better by reporting a false preference, because if he tells the truth, he will get his top choice. So he's fine. Under no circumstance, F1 can manipulate. Okay? But let's come to Fk by iteration. Let's think about kth highest priority agent. First of all, the most important observation on this kind of algorithms will be the following. Okay? So since we have priority queue, there's an agent located at the kth stage. So in the algorithms, I'm using the algorithm in the proof, when it is Fk's turn, think about houses which are remaining. Okay? So these are the whole house set, and some of them has gone to the agents who picked before him. So these are not available. Is there a way this agent can change this set? No, he cannot, because everybody before him reported the preferences. The ordering is exogenously determined. He cannot change the ordering. And everything depends on other people's preferences, not his own preferences. So whatever he reports, this set, he will be left with. Okay? What? Well, if he tells the truth, he will get the best he can get in this set. So he will be best off in that sense. Okay? So he cannot do better than reporting his true preferences, so on and so forth. So this observation, this houses left before an agent chooses, will be very crucial in many of these proofs. So when before some agent's turn, many times these algorithms will achieve incentive compatibility through the observation that this agent cannot change the set of houses, which I sometimes call budget set, his budget set, whatever he can achieve, his feasible set. He will not be able to change that set by reporting preferences, by different preferences. Since he cannot manipulate his budget set, and he's already getting his top choice in this budget set, whatever he reports, he will be better off in this set. So that will be the, I guess this is important to understand, because the other algorithms use very similar idea, but using more complicated arguments. Okay? Well, the second theorem, the serial dictatorship is parity efficient. Okay, very good. So we have already achieved the two goals very easily using a very natural mechanism. Okay? How come? Let's think about that. So let mu be the outcome matching of a serial dictatorship, pi f, for some preference profile script. Okay? Okay, let's assume by contradiction that mu is Pareto dominated by some other matching. Okay? So it means that there exists some agent A who gets a better house under nu. Okay? But no other agent actually gets a worse house. Either, since the preferences are have no indifferences, either they get the same house they get under nu and mu, or the ones who don't get the same house, they get a better house under nu. Otherwise, nu wouldn't Pareto dominate mu. Okay? So, in particular, let's choose this agent A as the highest priority agent in F with this property. So he's the top agent for whom, in this, let's call him again Fk if you wish, he's the top agent for whom his allocation is different under both matchings. So for everybody else, mu of A prime is the same as mu of A prime. And for this guy, he has a better outcome at the top of that. Okay, so he's a top agent. There's one agent like that, right? He could be number 1, he could be number K. All right. So now let's look at that. All right. So so it's I in the proof. Sorry. Okay. So now it's Fi's turn to choose who's agent A. So let's think about that. What does he get under his under the serial dictatorship? He gets the best available house left in this set under the serial dictatorship. Okay. All right. Well, but remember, everybody else had the same outcome under. So this set was identical for these two. So mu of A is the best house here, and these are already fixed for these agents. So mu of A cannot be better than that because there is no such a house. So that's the contradiction. So this shows that pi of F is Pareto efficient. Okay. So this is the end of the day. I can go home because now we found a strategy proof and Pareto efficient mechanism. Well, it turns out that there are many mechanisms and they may have different applications. So in you will see in economics actually fulfilling some goals could be very difficult, and you may not be actually find I will call a first best mechanism. There could be some problem domains. But it turns out that this problem domain suffers the opposite problem. There are too many mechanisms which satisfy these two properties. So we have to be more selective if we achieve other goals. Okay? So in this sense, maybe this axiomatic approach could be helpful. This is a very theoretical approach, okay, which basically we come up plausible economic or normative properties in addition to these two properties, or others maybe, so that we can simultaneously satisfy all of them and characterize the all set of mechanisms which satisfy these properties. Okay? So for example, there are two of these properties are neutrality and non-bossiness. I will tell you why they are very plausible. So these are maybe people wouldn't object if we had it, but they may object. So it depends on the problem up to this point. Okay. So what does neutrality say? Neutrality says that let's think about the following case, right? Everybody has preferences and over houses, but let's say they don't care about on the street. These houses are located on the street, and they have numbers 1, 2, 3 on the street. Okay, so their preferences are purely determined by where these houses are located, not by the numbers. Numbers have no effect on the house. So, but the mechanism can only assign based on the numbers. Okay, it says number 1 house will be assigned to this guy, number 2 house is going to be assigned. So it doesn't know exactly other properties of the houses. Okay. So people just list their preferences, say, okay, I like 2 more than 3, more than 1. But then another sample planner comes and he says, well, I don't like this numbering for our city, I'm going to change these numbers. I will call this now 3, I will call this 2, and I will call this 1 in the other way around. Okay? So if the mechanism is neutral, okay, now of course agents observe this. So agent 1 maybe reported 2, 3, 1 before, now reports 2, 1, 3 instead of 2, 3, 1 because this was 1 and this was 3 before, and he liked 2, 3, 1 now, but now he knows that this is now called 1, so he reports his preferences. And in this case, if he got house 3, the neutral mechanism said that, okay, now he gets house 1 under this case. So the allocation doesn't rely on anything other than the things that affect people's preferences, not the numbers. Numbers shouldn't matter. So if we permute people's preferences, the allocation should be also permuted under the same thing when we get the outcome. Alright? So in this sense, neutrality is desirable in this sense if we have different people who are running the mechanism and all these other features of allocation. Okay? A mechanism is phi is neutral, so I call the permutation a relabeling. Okay? So let's relabel the preferences. So house 1 is now called house 3, house 3 is called now house 1. Okay? So now we obtain this new preference list by just changing that. And this is our old mechanism. So our old mechanism should assign under this new preference profile to agent A a house which is the relabeling of the old house he got. That's the formal definition. Okay? Almost there is no proof is needed to see that serial dictatorship is neutral because the allocation doesn't depend on the identity of the houses. Okay? It only depends on the preferences of the agents, exact preferences. Okay? So it doesn't say that if house 1 is somebody's top choice, that person goes first. House 2 is somebody's top choice, that person goes second, etc. He doesn't specify, he doesn't condition on the names. Okay, very good. So it's neutral. This property is very important in this domain, and you will see, I think Tayfun is going to also talk about group strategy proofness, is a stronger version of strategy proofness. Okay, so it will be related to group strategy proofness. Some people find it a controversial property, I don't know why, but they may say that, okay? Yes. Yes. But this plus, in this domain, this, so non-bassiness and strategy proofness, I totally understand you, will be equal to group strategy proofness, which is even stronger. But people might say GSP can be very easy to impose. But it's very easy to impose here. Yes, absolutely. In other environments, I understand. If you cannot satisfy this, then of course you will have to relax. And the question is, which one are you relaxed? This or this? Of course, you're going to relax this one. You're not going to relax that. So in that sense, as you see, I already introduced this as an additional property, not like a fundamental property. Okay. So the non-bassiness says the following. Okay. Basically, suppose I lie about my preferences, but I still get the same house I was getting before. So the non-bassiness says that then the outcome of the mechanism should not change. That means that, look, I'm reporting one preference and another preference, and I'm still getting the same house. So in a way, I have these irrelevant parts of my preference, right? If you wish, in an auction, for example, my bid is important, but nothing else, in the sense that whether I'm going to get the house. So the outcome should not depend on this nothing else. Other parts of my preferences regarding maybe where the auction is held, who holds the auction, what is the weather like outside, etc. should have no effect. Okay? No, so you cannot obtain non-bassiness in the auction environment. I was just going to say that. Yes, with this. Okay? Together you cannot get it. Okay? Very good. But then it turns out that in the auction environment you cannot obtain these two together. Yes. But here you can. So the irrelevant parts of your preferences do not affect the outcome. This is what it means. Okay? So it says that the following. Okay, suppose an agent reports two different preferences and yet he gets the same house while the others are reporting the same preferences. Okay, whatever they were reporting before. Then the outcome of the mechanism, the whole matching should be the same. Okay, this is what it says. So a serial dictatorship is non-bossy. I'm not going to go to the proof. It's a longer proof, but you can do it by, again, iteration. You don't even need induction for this case. So the proof is here. So a mechanism phi is group strategy proof if there is no set of agents B at their joint preference manipulation, script of B, so this is, oops, sorry. This is the joint preference manipulation of agents in B. So they come together, they discuss some strategy, and they report together, script of B, while their true preferences were this one. Oops. Okay? And other people's preferences are some preference profile. Okay? Now, in this case, by lying, everybody in the group, so for every agent A in the group B, gets at least as good of a house as before if they told the truth, and one person strictly improves, at least one person. Okay? So this is going to be strongly group strategy proof. Okay? If everybody has to improve, that's we call weakly group strategy proof. In this case, this is only this is the most demanding version. Okay? So it turns out that non-bussiness has a role in this domain. So a mechanism is group strategy proof if and only if it is non-Bastian strategy proof. And this will be true, I believe, in all the talks you will listen today. In all these domains we will talk about in single unit, good allocation, okay, with deterministic allocation. It needs to be a deterministic mechanism. So this is only true for deterministic mechanisms. This thing will hold as long as we have strict preferences. Okay? But if there is some money, etc., like Typhoon will talk about models with complex preferences, this may not hold in that case. Okay? So why did I talk about that? It turns out actually serial dictatorship is the unique mechanism which is strategy proof, non-bossy, and neutral. So a mechanism is strategy proof, non-bossy, which means group strategy proof, and neutral if and only if it can be represented as a serial dictatorship. So this is a very nice result so it was 1998 by Swenson. Okay, the proof is here. I'm not going to go in detail, but you have, if you are interested in this literature, I would recommend you read this. Yeah. Exactly. So Pareto efficiency comes for free. So that's the nice outcome. Okay. So in that sense, if you think neutrality is a very important property to respect, there is no way but you have to use serial dictatorship. Okay? And of course, non-Bosnians. So without non-Bosnians, you can still get some very eccentric mechanisms. I'm not sure they would be. Right. I mean, you don't. I mean, in a way, I'm maybe giving you this property for free, almost for free. That's what I'm telling you. When I give you this, I'm almost giving you this for free. That's all I'm saying, to be honest. Okay? Right. Exactly. Actually, it goes to even further than that. So this non-Bosnians was introduced by Sonnenschein and Satterthwaite and Sonnenschein in 1981, I believe. And they were actually after where this masking monotonicity refers to some definition of incentive compatibility. And they found a number of domains where this non-Bossiness and strategy proofness is equal to masking monotonicity. Okay, they didn't find this domain in particular, but they found a number of domains. And it turns out that this is in this domain exactly equal to masking monotonicity as well. So in that sense, it has like deeper connections to implementation theory through this, which I'm not going to talk about today. All right? And you either use actually the nice structure given by masking monotonicity in these proofs, or you're right, just use non-Bosnians. But they all turn out to be equivalent in the proof, so it's maybe easier if you just use this masking monotonicity. Thank you. Those are important. Again, this is only true single item. Deterministic mechanism. And so single unit demand. Deterministic mechanism, and what is the third one? I said was that no indifferences. Okay, so this is going to be important. So for the theoretically minded, okay, these are where one this holds in various domains. Okay, so the proof is here. As you see, it takes some time because the characterization. So one direction is very easy for the students. Maybe it's useful to denote. So we already showed that serial dictatorship is now at least here in the non-bossy. But I already explicitly showed you that it is strategy proof and neutral. But now we have to prove that all mechanisms which are strategy proof, non-bossy, and neutral can be represented through a serial dictatorship mechanism. So what does represented mean? They're equivalent. Their functions are the same. Okay, at the end. And to do that, what you do is that in this kind of proofs, just to give you an idea, you start with a particular preference profile, okay, which we call critical profile. So you have to figure out that critical profile for different problems have different critical profiles. Under that critical profile, there is only one outcome which satisfies these three properties. So any mechanism which chooses, which needs to be strategy proof, non-bossy, and neutral has to pick that outcome. Okay, and then what you do is that so your mechanism is also, and then you can identify a candidate serial dictatorship. Which serial dictatorship, for example, would pick that outcome? Okay. So you can find your construct your priority ordering F. Then you need to do is that for all preference profiles, this equivalence true, not just that particular critical profile. You, by changing the preferences using especially non-bossiness and strategy proofness, you will obtain this equivalence. Okay? So this is the idea. So I'm giving you an idea how to prove the things. I'm not going to do the proof because I want to talk about more market design kind of results. Okay? There are other characterizations of serial dictatorship through other properties. One of those properties is consistency. For example, William Thompson has used it many times. A mechanism is consistent, parity efficient, and neutral if and only if it's a serial dictatorship. So this consistency property basically, and with the others, replaces incentive properties. So they imply the incentive properties. So in that sense, it is nice. All right. Okay. So let's continue with the serial dictatorship. What else can we say nice about serial dictatorship? It turns out that there's another nice property of a serial dictatorship as follows. Take a parity efficient matching for a given problem. Okay, so fix the problem, pick a parity efficient matching of this outcome. Okay, problem. So there exists some serial dictatorship which actually gets that matching for that problem. Say it again? Right, exactly. Right. Exactly. It's in that sense, it's exactly like the second welfare theorem. Thank you, comment. But it has nothing to do with incentives, and we are very much interested because as you change the problem, you may have to modify the serial dictatorship, and it may not be incentive compatible. But that's beyond the point of this theorem. Like you said, it's about more like the second welfare theorem. Okay, I guess this basic model is clear. So let's go to more complicated models with more structure on top of that. All right. So actually, this model is earlier in a way formally than the previous model, but I think it's a good time to introduce this model. So we have a now private ownership economy. Houses were collectively owned, and we were trying to find a parity efficient allocation of the houses to the people. But now houses are privately owned. Let's say everybody has a house before he comes to the market. So we don't want to give an agent a house which is worse than his own house, his endowment house. We would like to improve upon that. All right? So let's do the following. So we have the same kind of houses, agents, but on top of that we pair them. Let's say AK is endowed with HK. That's his own house. So that's the additional structure. And again, we have like preferences, we have matchings, we have everything is the same as before. And the properties of mechanisms are the same because this private endowment is about some economic property, while mechanisms are defined through a function and etc. So you can use the same mechanisms if you wish in this problem. But they may not be as desirable as maybe special solutions for this problem. Okay? So through this chapter that I will talk about, I will fix again the set of agents and the endowments. Okay? So each market will be denoted again by the preference profile. Again, there are no indifferences in preferences. Okay? So an outcome of the housing market is a matching. Mechanisms are defined using the same way before. Again, we need parity efficiency, incentive properties, non-busyness could be desired, group strategy improvements could be desired, and neutrality, consistency, but needs to be modified for this domain because these two axioms, neutrality and consistency, are, which I didn't talk too much about, are a bit related to the definition of the problem, while the others are independent of the exact structure of the problem. Okay? So in a way, this, if you are interested in cooperative game theory, this is actually a cooperative game. This housing market is a non-transferable utility cooperative game. And in this kind of domains, I guess core is the most important solution concept, as you may know. And usually, especially matching theorists usually call core the set of stable matchings. So this will be a word you will hear over again in different domains. Okay? So usually stability and being a core matching can be used interchangeably, but you have to be careful because there are additional adjectives. So there's strong core, group stable, that's stable. So it's always to give the definition and use that terminology for that problem. So they may be different at the end because there are additional adjectives it's put depending on the problem. But let me define core here. Core is the set of matchings mu such that there exists no coalition of agents and a matching nu such that, so think about this coalition, the coalition comes together, let's say, before the market sets and the market says that, okay, you will get mu, okay? So I will say that these agents B are going to object this. They will say, no, we don't like mu, but we can actually obtain a better outcome for ourselves. How? We come together before the market. We trade among only ourselves. So nu A is HL for some agent AL in the coalition. So he gets the endowment of another agent in the coalition. Okay? And everybody weakly improves in the coalition B. Nu A is at least as good as mu A. And for some agent B, nu B is strictly better than mu B. Okay? So in this case, we say that B blocks mu via nu. Okay? If there is no such a block, then we say that this is a core matching. It's in the core. Okay? As you can see, this can be done because these are private endowments. I may always opt out of the market and find a group myself and trade among those agents. And I may object that outcome because we have the freedom to do so. So in that sense, one important property additional to parity efficiency will be individual rationality. So a matching is individually rational if every agent receives a house at least as good as her initial endowment house. So we should either, otherwise he wouldn't participate, he would continue to live in his own house. Okay? First of all, core is much stronger than individual rationality and Pareto efficiency together, because a core matching is always individual rational. So let's look at singleton coalitions. If I get a house worse than my house, I can just block by myself by receiving my own house, by a singleton block. On top of that, a core matching is also Pareto efficient, because now the grand coalition, everybody can come together, they can trade among themselves to create a new matching, and they can improve weekly, and one person is improving strictly. Okay? So a core is more than these two, both individual rationality and Pareto efficiency. So it may not exist in theory. A core could matching, because it requires all sizes of coalitions not to be able to block, not just singletons and the grand coalition. But it turns out that, so that's the Shapley and Scarf's paper, that the core is non-empty. And then Roth and Postlethwaite showed that this core is actually a unique value. This is singleton. There's only a unique core allocation, core matching. Okay? So this alternative proof that I will talk about is attributed to David Gale by Shapley and Scarf. Okay? Actually, it's kind of funny. So they use like this balanced cooperative games, and because every balanced game has a core allocation, they make this. They prove that every housing market is a balanced game, and then they say, okay, then its core should be non-empty. But there is a very direct proof of this result, and then David Gale says that, well, why don't you prove like this? And they say, oh yes, that's true. So that actually constitutes a very fundamental algorithm in this literature that I will call, or people call, Gale's top trading cycles algorithm. So there is deferred acceptance algorithm, but this is going to be different from the deferred acceptance algorithm. Basically, this will be the second major algorithm that we will be discussing in this literature. Okay, so deferred acceptance algorithm will be covered, maybe I will cover at the end, or maybe Typhoon is gonna cover, so we should talk about that. Okay, here's the algorithm. So here's the explanation here. Maybe let's not go over the explanation, it's long. Let's do on one example, which will be very easy to see. Okay, so basically this algorithm works. Over a directed graph. So we will form a directed graph, we modify it over time. So what is a directed graph? There are nodes in it, so each node represents an agent and his endowment, okay? And then this agent is going to point to another agent if that agent's house is his top choice, according to his true preferences. And there's a unique arc like that, because we don't have any indifferences. There is a unique top choice, okay, for each agent. Right? So here's an example. Very simple example with 3 agents. Okay, so A1's top choice is H2. So he will point to the owner of H2, who is A2. Okay, so A1 owns H1, A2 owns H2, A3 owns H3. Okay, so he will point to this guy, A2, H2. A2, H2, so A2 is going to point to back to A1 because his top choice is his house. Okay, but A3 will point to H2. H2 or A2, H2. This. Okay. So what's happening? Everybody is pointing, and everybody is only pointing through one arc out. So it's easy to prove that this kind of a graph always has a cycle. Okay? It's a finite graph, everybody is pointing, and it has a cycle because of that. What is a cycle? Cycle is a list of agents and houses, okay, which A1, so let's write it like this, H1, A1 points to H2, A2, which points back to A1, H1. So A1 points to A2, A2 points to A3, AK points back to A1. Okay, in that sense. So this is a cycle. We clear this cycle, so that's why we call it top trading cycles. How do we clear it? We give A1 the house that he's pointing to. So A1 gets H2. Okay. A2 gets H1, so everybody can get the house that they are pointing to. But A3 is not on a cycle, so A3 doesn't get any. So now we go to the second round. It's an iterative algorithm. We finalize the outcome, and we do the same thing. Now, what is left in the problem? Only A3 is left. What is the top choice of A3 among the remaining houses? H3. So he points to himself, because that's the owner of the house. So we clear this cycle. This is a trivial cycle, we call this. It's a cycle of size 1. So A3, H3, A3 is the second cycle. And he gets H3. So this is called the top trading cycles algorithm. Okay? Of David Gale. David Gale's top trading cycles algorithm. So this is the description. This is a formal description of this algorithm by words. So we claim that this algorithm will find a core outcome. Okay? So let's try to prove that. It's a very easy proof. Okay? So let's mu be the outcome of the Gale's top trading cycles algorithm. Okay? So one important thing about this algorithm is that we can actually we can create a cycle structure of this algorithm. So I can order cycles. By the way, there could be 2 cycles at a step at the same time, but none of them are going to intersect. So an agent will not be on 2 cycles. Why? Because each agent is pointing to a single person. Okay? So an agent can be at most on 1 cycle. If there are 2 cycles, they are not intersecting. So I can clear this cycle and then clear the other one. The order is not important. You can clear which one, it doesn't matter. So I can, in a way, order the cycles in some way. So C1 be the first cycle, C2 be the second cycle. If they are in the same step, just arbitrarily choose one of them as C1. C1, C2 up to CK. Let be all these cycles we find in the steps. Okay? So here's one observation. So we want to show that first observation is each cycle consists of a coalition of agents and their endowments. In a way, this is a redistribution of the endowments. It's a trade among agents. They trade among each other their endowments. Okay? So let's think about that. Can we create other coalitions which can improve upon this outcome? First of all, no agent in C1 can be made better off over mu. So C1 by itself wouldn't be a coalition blocking this. Okay? So let's look at a superset of C1. Okay? First of all, why should I get the superset of B1? Superset of C1. Let's think about that. So let's say C1 is this cycle. So I'm going to construct a possible candidate to block. And I get only one agent out of that. Okay? The agent in C1, this is C1, already he's getting his top choice, right? Because that he pointed and he got it immediately. He's getting his top choice. But now this guy is no longer in this coalition, and he was getting this house. Well, but my blocking coalition should be a reshuffling of the endowments of the agents within the coalition. So since this guy is outside, he no longer can get this house. So I will make him worse off. So he cannot be part of a blocking coalition. So either C1 is out or C1 is as a whole inside of a blocking coalition. Nothing else. So let's consider this as a blocking coalition. Okay? So any agent in C1, they get their first choice and they trade. Okay? So I can just remove C1 from this. I can look at the remaining B minus C1. This would still be a blocking coalition, because this was just a reshuffling of endowments. So it means these guys are reshuffling their endowments among themselves. So if B is a blocking coalition, B minus C1 is a blocking coalition. Okay? So let's focus on B minus C1. Next step, can B minus C1 include C2 by the same argument? Okay? But again, C2 by itself cannot be a blocking coalition, because now, since these guys are not part of a blocking coalition, okay, and we cannot, and they are reshuffling their endowments, C2 can never achieve these houses in a blocking coalition. But C2 is already getting their top choices once C1 is allocated, once C1 is gone. So C2, with the same argument, cannot be part of a blocking coalition, because they're already getting the best houses they can get. Okay? So the argument goes on like that. Then, okay, C2 is by itself, it's not a blocking coalition. Maybe it's in here. C2 is here. But again, I can take C2 out. The remaining set should be still a blocking coalition. And I make this, I exclude all cycles, so this should be empty. There cannot be anybody in this cycle. Okay? So that's the idea about proving that it's in the core. So uniqueness is here. So I'm not going to talk about the uniqueness right now because of the time constraint. It is by Roth and Postlethwaite. The proof is here. Okay? So here's a very fancy version of the algorithm with many agents. Okay? So what you need to see is that, so everybody is pointing to their first choices. So this is one thing important I would like you to pay attention. So I would like you to pay attention to, let me see, what I will call a chain here. Okay, just give me 1 second, let me figure that out. So look at this guy. Okay. Okay, it's kind of fancy. Okay, let's do this. Okay. So look at that chain. All right, and especially I would like you to see this guy, A3, H3. Okay, I would like to see that. So he's pointing to A1, H1. Why? Because probably H1 is his top choice in the algorithm. Otherwise he wouldn't point. But you see, he has no chance of getting H1 because the other guys are forming a cycle, so he will not get it. So here's one thing I would like you to see. Look at every house on this chain. Okay? Since everybody else is pointing, in a way, A3 could have gotten any of these houses in this chain if he wanted to. So A3 could have gotten, let's say, okay. How would he do that? He would point to here and then the cycle would close, you see? Or he would have gotten any other one, if you wish, on this set. He could have gotten this one. How would he gotten that one? He would just point it back to here, And we have a cycle. How is that cycle? This way, this way, this way, back to A3. So let me highlight it. That will be a cycle. Maybe you don't see it very well. But I guess you see the cycle, right? If he did that. So he could have gotten... So in a way, these houses, H2, H2, H9, H5, H9, H11, and H3 itself, his own house, are in a way his budget set, I will call it again. These are all the houses he could get, but he didn't want it for some reason. He wanted H1. So the question is, as the rounds progress, will this budget set shrink? Will it get any smaller? Let's think about it. This set will never get smaller. This chains will only get longer, or it can create even more fancier trees, which we call, okay, where actually you could have actually even more sophisticated view like this, right? So this is also still, oops, in his budget set, which I didn't see first, okay. So actually this list is even better than that. There is also H4 here. Is there any other? I'm missing anyway. Okay, I guess you got the idea. This set will never get smaller because somebody else will point, and a person will continue to point to the same house he was pointing until that house leaves. At that point, either he also leaves or somebody else leaves. So why am I telling you this? In a way, what I'm telling you is that A3 loses nothing by pointing to A1 if he wants one of these houses in the later stages, because he will always have a chance to claim these houses. Okay, these chains get longer and longer. These trees get longer and longer. So his budget set weekly increases from round to round. So this is good to know. On top of that, A3 has no control over this cycle that happening. So in a way, if you wish, I will call those houses which lives before A3. So there's no priority ordering here, but still there's an order of things being cleared. So in a way, he has no control of H1 and H15 when they leave. Okay? So whenever agent A3 leaves, whatever preferences he reported to the system, the same cycles would have formed before he left. And his feasible budget set is already growing. It's never gets smaller. So he could get any of those. So, and he's getting his top choice when he forms the cycle in the round. So this is the proof that this algorithm, if I were to use this as a mechanism, would be strategy proof. Nobody would have an incentive to lie about it. Okay? That's the reason I'm telling you all this. And I would like you to see this structure again. So this is important. Yes.
What you said is that if I want to change the outcome other than totally cycle, either you don't change anything or you're going to be worse off.
Exactly. So it's also non-bossy.
Non-bossy.
Because of that. Exactly. Thank you. Yes. It also satisfies non-bossiness. Either you're going to change the outcome or you're going to be worse off. Exactly. Yes. And it's also non-bossy on top of that. Yes. Okay, so in the second round, actually he likes his own house and he leaves. So we didn't need any of those. Okay, so now those guys are free. They can point wherever they want. They don't need to print pointage. Okay, so it goes on like that. We find an outcome. So core, if it is used as a mechanism where agent reports their preference, is a strategy proof. Okay, which is a very good result. Well, you may think that, so you may object that, so this is a private endowment economy, so you may say that, well, why don't we look at competitive economy, decentralized outcome. So we can define competitive equilibrium through a price vector. So price vector is going to be the prices that I assign to houses, but money has no role in this. So money is just used to define the budget set. That's it. Okay. So I will say that a house HM is affordable for an agent AL at a price vector P if the price of HM is less than or equal to his own house's price. So that's my budget inequality. This is my budget set. PHM, all the houses HM, such that PHM is less than or equal to PHL if I'm agent AL. Alright? So a matching mu and a price vector P is a competitive equilibrium if for any agent A, mu A is the best house she can afford at the prices P. So everybody buys the best house she can afford at the reported preferences. Okay? It turns out that the core matching is also a you can find a price vector to make it a competitive equilibrium. And it's very easy, the price vector is. Again, look at the order of the cycles, how you clear them. Okay, so all houses here, let's make their prices equal to P1. Okay, all houses are here. So make this, the price is P2, so P1 is larger than P2. All houses here get the price P2. Again, this ordering, the cheapest houses are which are cleared in the last round. So basically, if I am in the top cycle, I could afford all the houses here, any house here, okay? But I chose my top choice already, and I can afford, and I buy it. So that's top trading cycles because I got my top choice. Here in the second round, well, I couldn't afford anything in the top cycle because they are too expensive. So these are not in my budget set. But anything here is in my budget set. I'm already getting my top choice. Okay. Again, you can show that there's a unique, actually, competitive matching. Of course, the prices can be arbitrary as long as there is this ordering, but the matching is unique. So the core, in a way, is the correct mechanism if you want to solve it as a centralized way. Okay, it is the market mechanism because it's the competitive equilibrium outcome, it finds you. It is strategy proof as a mechanism. Since it's core, it's parity efficient, individual rational. But now one can wonder, are there other mechanisms which are also individual rational, parity efficient, and strategy proof? Okay, so core is just is a candidate. So that could be if you don't, okay, core is stronger than this, right? Parity efficiency and individuation. Maybe you don't care about all this blocking thing, you only care about parity efficiency and individual rationality. Okay? The answer is no. I think this is one of the most fundamental results in this literature. So a mechanism is strategy proof, parity efficient, and individual rational if and only if it's the core mechanism. Okay? I think this is a very important result, I would say. So in a way, TTC is the only way if you are going to solve something centrally. Because it exactly mimics the trait and it is strategy proof. So there are not many mechanisms or problem domains where you can have all these nice properties at the same time. This is one of the fewest exceptions that I know of. Okay, this kind of problems. Actually, Tayfun Sönmez has a very nice paper in which he talks about on which domains strategy proofness and parity efficiency and individual rationality are aligned. Okay, and he shows that in domains where core is unique valued or essentially single unique valued, okay, in all these matching domains, he calls them generalized matching domains, whenever the core is a singleton, you can get these three properties. Okay? It's not a unique, as far as I remember, it's not the characterization of all these properties, but he says that the core used as a mechanism would be strategy proof, parity efficient, and individual rational in all these domains. And core could be empty. Core could be. So you have to go to weaker versions of core. So indifferences just kills all these results. Okay? So that's the reason I was very insistent that there are no indifferences. Yeah. So here's the proof. So yeah, I don't have time to talk about that. So instead, I'm gonna delegate it as a homework. So now, market design part of this talk. Okay, so now we have all these very nice mechanisms. Now let's introduce some real life problems. Can we solve some? Oh, I already discussed. Okay, so I guess this was the first, I would say, market design oriented paper using this kind of ownership models. Okay, so Abdülkadiroğlu and Sönmez in Journal of Economic Theory in 1999, they were inspired by the real life markets of on-campus housing practices in the US universities. So these are students are going to be allocated a dormitory room. So what they do is they usually go to a lottery. Okay, so I will talk about that in a second. And they inspected that and they realized that actually this is a different new domain of problems. So practice fed back the theory. So it's a mixed ownership model. Some houses are not are owned by agents. Some houses, they are common endowments. Everybody owns them. Okay. So that's the difference between. So it's a combination of these two models. Right? Everything is the same. We have the mixed ownership economy. So let me talk about how the colleges solve this problem and how these authors to solve. Why did they object their solution and what did they propose? All right. So here is the mechanism: random serial dictatorship with squatting rights. That's the. So they don't call it serial dictatorship. Again, that's not a very good name to use. They just call it lottery. So lottery means serial dictatorship, if you wish. So lottery with the squatting rights. Okay. So what is the squatting rights? Let me tell you. So there are now, what is the difference between the two, so it has the common features of the two models. So we have existing tenants, okay, and so these guys have an endowment. So AL owns HL to come to the market. And there are newcomers. These guys don't own anything to come to the market, newcomers. Well, in addition, there are some occupied houses. These are precisely the endowment of the existing tenants. Okay? And there are vacant houses. They are not really endowment of anybody. They are endowment of everybody, including existing tenants. So existing tenants may have some rights in the vacant houses. So why is this similar to college allocation? Dormitory allocation, because we have like 4 years of students and many universities force the students to stay on campus. Well, when a class graduates, their dorms becomes vacant houses. So there are freshman students, there are newcomers, and there are other students who already occupy a room from the previous year. These are existing tenants, and they can have the same room if they wish, or maybe not. We'll see. All right. So this is the squatting rights mechanism. Okay. So each existing tenant decides whether she will enter the lottery. So that's the first step. So it's not a direct mechanism. It's not like everybody reports their preferences. Instead, they will first announce whether they are going to enter the lottery. Okay. Or, alternative, if they don't enter, they keep their current house and they're out. Okay? Now, we have the vacant houses. We have the agents who declared themselves lottery eligible and they are in the lottery. And their houses becomes part of the pool. Okay? And there are the vacant houses and here. So vacant houses, the endowments of the agents who entered the lottery, existing tenants. This form the housing pool. We have the newcomers, and we have the agents, existing tenants who declared themselves to the lottery. This is the agent pool. So we randomly draw a priority ordering. It could be a uniform distribution. It could be a weighted distribution. For example, some schools favor seniors. Some schools favor the freshmen. I think seniors are like at Boston College, seniors are always preferred, more senior students. Okay, then after that priority ordering is determined, we use a serial dictatorship for the remaining pool. So the squatting right is that I have the right to keep my house. That's the squatting right. Otherwise, it will be just a random version of serial dictatorship. Okay? But here's the problem with that. This actually induces a game on the part of it. So games are not bad actually, usually, but this induces a game on the part of the existing tenant. So existing tenant has to decide whether he's going to stay out or he's going to be in. So depending on his risk preferences or based on he's not there's lots of incomplete information which may not be resolvable to a best response, he may choose an outcome. He may not enter the lottery, maybe he's too risk averse. And eventually, maybe some newcomer gets, or somebody in the lottery gets house, they would be better off if they could trade that house. But you are stuck because you're outside and this guy that house. So it's not parity efficient, ex post parity efficient. Because those agents could have improved. And also because of this thing, maybe I made a calculation, I entered its ex ante, it is in expected terms it's individually rational, but ex post it's individually irrational. Okay? And because it's ex post individually irrational, I may be scared by my risk aversion not to enter. Okay? So that may cause this Pareto inefficiency of this mechanism. I think that's the more important, Pareto inefficiency. Okay? So instead they propose the following hybrid version of top trading cycles and a serial dictatorship. Okay? So how does this work? So they called it, I think, a very bad name. But you request my house, I get your turn. Actually, the name is very good, but it's too long, I think. So now Typhoon heard that I call this mechanism with a bad name because it will be televised. Okay? So now, here's a mechanism from scratch, not an adaptation of some existing random serial dictatorship. Alright? So first of all, let's determine a priority order, maybe through a lottery again. Okay? Use the same lottery. But this priority order is for everybody, including the existing tenants and the newcomers. Now what we are going to do is that it will start like a serial dictatorship. The first agent will get her top choice because he reports. The second agent gets her top choice until someone requests the house of an existing tenant. But in this case, I want this existing tenant to get a house that is as good as his own house. If I get, so let's say this existing tenant was ordered very at the bottom, and this is the first guy, he wanted HK, right? He can get HK, and this guy wouldn't be able to get HK anymore because this guy, and he's in the bottom of the queue, he will get a very bad house. What we do is that we upgrade this AK to the top of H1. So it's a dynamic priority list in which AK is upgraded to the top of A1 because this guy asked his house. Now AK chooses. We freeze it. AK asks, look at his top choice. Okay? If AK gets his top choice, which is a vacant house, we are done. We assign AK to this vacant house. Okay? HL. He gets it. He's gone, and A1 gets HK, and we are back to the queue. But what could happen is that this AK also likes the house of an existing tenant. Now we upgrade that guy to the top. We upgrade another guy to the top until there is a loop. There's a cycle. That's the top trading cycles part. Now there could be a cycle in which AK wants the house of AK plus 1. AK plus 1 wants the house of AK plus 2. So this is the topper guy, and this goes to A and who wants back to the house of HK. In this case, if I continue this would go to infinity. It will always cycle. Instead, we just freeze it here. We call this the top trading cycles exactly, because this is everybody's top choice among the remaining houses at that point. We assign everybody the house he is pointing to. We clear now, we are back to our baseline after we clear these guys. Now, with the remaining remaining houses will repeat the same thing. So it's a dynamically we are updating the queue, while if there's a cycle, we are clearing it. Otherwise, we are just creating, the top guy gets the vacant house. Now his house becomes vacant, the other person gets his house, etc. It creates a chain, if you wish. Okay? So that's the definition of you request my house, I get your turn algorithm. Okay? Basically, this is the exact description, so I'm not going to go through it. Here is just the illustration. So let me just briefly go over it. Okay. So now we have A13 as the top guy. You see, A13 to A16 are newcomers. A1 to A9 are existing tenants who are attached to the houses at the top. But A13's top choice is H6, which is an occupied house. So A6 is promoted to the top. A6 turns out he likes his own house. He gets his own house, it's a cycle, he's out. Now A13 chooses the next. His second choice is H13. He gets it and he's out because H13 is a vacant house, so on and so forth. Okay? So here is a chain. A15 is second. A15 points to H1, which is attached to A1. A1 is promoted. But luckily A1 wants a vacant house. A1 gets H15. A15 gets H1. And it's a chain instead of a cycle. So these are the two objects which can occur. A chain or a cycle. Okay? Done. We do this repeatedly. And we have this outcome. Okay. So they prove that this is an individual rational strategy proof and Pareto efficient mechanism. So it has all the features that we've discussed. So I will delay the proof of this, okay? Because you will see why it is individual rational is easy, because whenever somebody asks an existing tenant's house, this guy is promoted to the top. So he will never get a house worse than his own house. So individual rational is easy. Strategy proof, again, it's easy in the following sense. Okay, just one may wish to realize that I can never affect a cycle if I'm an agent outside. Okay, that cycle would have occurred anyway. Okay, I cannot change the formation of a cycle if I'm not in that cycle. So cycles occur. They may not occur at the same time when I change my preferences, but if a cycle occurs, it will occur anyway. I cannot change that before me. And if we are allocated in a chain, already I'm getting the best house I can get. Alright, so it's going to be strategy proof in that sense. Right? Pareto efficiency is very similar to the first proof. It's a version of that. So here is a characterization. A mechanism is Pareto efficient, individual rational, strategy proof. So this was just for the core mechanism, if you remember. Consistent and weakly neutral. So this part is, if you want to read this, consistent, weakly neutral, and Pareto efficient was alternative characterization of serial dictatorship. Okay. So weakly neutral means that neutrality only applies to the vacant houses, not to the owned houses. So all of these properties, it turns out, fully characterizes this mechanism. You replace my house, I get your turn mechanism. Okay? So there's no core defined. The reason is that core requires some ownership rights, right? That here, if you wish, for the vacant houses, it's not very formally defined who has the rights. We say everybody has rights. So what does that mean? Everybody has rights mean. It's not. So I have seen papers which attempt to define core for this kind of problems. In the end, it boils down to like Pareto efficiency almost. Everybody should agree, and there should be no other objectable alternative outcome or something like that. Yes.
There is a way we can define the vertical core.
Yes, you can do that.
But in other sense,
It's not the natural way. You can do that, but you can do that. Yes.
But in other sense, actually, ownership is not clear for some other people.
Exactly.
Why we have to start over or anyway?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So you may not. So this could be a natural way of looking at it. All right. All right. Any questions? So now I would like to use this priority order business to make a case about random mechanisms. Okay? So until now we only actually effectively talked about deterministic mechanisms because we didn't really care how that priority order was determined, for example. Right? It was given to us. But I mean, the question is, how does that priority order come? If it's a deterministic outcome, it will always favor some agents before the other agents, which would be fair. So here the fairness will come into play. Let's say we are in the common ownership economy. Agent F1 is ordered above F2. All realizations of the problem. Is this fair? It could be fair. Although this is a common ownership economy, this guy may have higher rights than this F2. So he would get whatever he wants always. F2 will only get whatever this guy doesn't want, the best out of this one, if this is a civil dictatorship. Why could it be fair? Well, it could be the case that although this is a common endowment economy, again, the precise reason we didn't specify how that ownership is exactly resolved. It could be like organ allocation, and this guy could be a very severe disease he could have with respect to the outcome. So if he doesn't get first, he's going to die. So that could be a normative way of motivating, or he won't be able to find a good match if his body is too sensitive, like in kidneys, for example. So we would like to always allocate this maybe before that, because this guy is easier to match. So his compatible set is larger than this guy. Maybe indifferences may play a role in this order. Okay? So these are all four cases for a deterministic outcome. Another example is queue allocation. Literally, physical queues are used to allocate seats to people, right? In, for example, China, there were some public schools. People would literally go a few days in advance, wait there. They would get a right to get in by waiting there, so they put an effort by waiting there, and that effort would make them get a higher priority for their kids to enter that school. Okay? So queue is a very natural way of, in a way, creating this priority order, because queue requires some investment, and you have to make that investment in a way endogenously. Whoever wants more goes to the first, and he creates that queue. Okay. But on the other hand, there could be other problems where this queue, creating this kind of queue, is not very fair in the sense you would think. For example, when we are allocating courses to the students in the university, this is a problem we always get. The system gives students a pick time when they're going to pick the courses. Okay, some students are always at the back. Okay, I think it's resolved now, but I think it used to be the case. All right. Well, it's not clear how they determine this priority ordering, but let me take it back. Actually, it was not exactly like that. It was as follows. It was actually by time. The system would open, everybody would just rush in. So who could have a faster computer access would register first, etc. And that doesn't sound a very, professional way of determining. We are already charging $45,000 for the students at Boston College, let's say, or at a good US university, and then these kids are like rushing in to register. Okay? Instead, maybe we can randomize this order, and maybe you can make it correlated. Maybe this year it's maybe if some student is a higher order and if somebody is a lower order exposed, we just correlate that lower student gets a higher order next year when he registers. Okay, so these are all cases for random mechanisms to sustain this fairness. So in a way, this randomization could be a start point for lottery mechanisms. Okay. This serial dictatorship is extremely simple to implement. Okay? And let's use random serial dictatorship, where you randomly determine, you will still keep most of the properties of this mechanism intact, maybe not all. Okay? So I guess the proper definitions are not very crucial for what I'm going to talk about, but let me briefly talk about the following. So now we are talking about allocating people probabilities, chances to get in. Okay? Although their fundamental preferences are defined over the houses. So we have to somehow extend their preference to the lotteries. Of course, one way is just using von Neumann-Morgenstern, taking these ordinal preferences being represented by von Neumann-Morgenstern utility function. But this is not known, this is not observable. We usually observe ordinal rankings. So maybe we can come up with some welfare criteria which cannot be disputed under any kind of von Neumann-Morgenstern utility function, like first-order stochastic dominance. If one lottery first-order stochastically dominates the other, undoubtedly this other lottery is better for welfare. So we will talk about that. So in that sense, we will define a random assignment matrix. Rho is going to be a bistochastic matrix, which means that, okay, so the rows refer to agents. Row A of H means that the probability of agent A getting into or getting the house H, row AH. So since it's a probability marginal distribution matrix, along the rows, it needs to sum up to 1 because it's a probability distribution. Okay? And each house should be allocated, so along each column, its sum should be sum up to 1. Right? If there are actually few houses, etc., you can update this kind. You can introduce a null house, and you can integrate that through that. Okay? So we have a random assignment vector is going to be a row A, which summarizes the marginal probabilities of each houses being allocated to agent A. Okay? And a lottery is nothing but a function which assigns weights to each possible matching, such that the sum of the weights sum up to 1. It's a probability distribution over deterministic matchings. Okay? So if you look at the top, so a lottery mechanism is a procedure that assigns a lottery for each house allocation problem. So random serial dictatorship is an example of a lottery mechanism. Basically, determine a priority ordering with uniform distribution over all priority orderings, and then use the induced serial dictatorship by that priority order to find the match. So it will be a lottery mechanism. Alright? But this lottery mechanism, this lottery or a lottery will induce a random assignment matrix. So lotteries put weights on the matchings, right? But I can be assigned a house, the same house, under two different matchings. So I'm agent 1. Okay, I get H1. In one matching, this guy gets H2. In one matching, this guy gets H3. In the other one, it just reverses. So from my perspective, these two outcomes are equivalent, because I'm always getting H1. Okay? So for that reason, I just look, what I care is, because there are no externalities, is my random assignment vector. What is the probability that I will get house H1? So it will be the sum of the probability of this one and the probability of this. So this is mu1. So every lottery induces a random assignment vector matrix for the agents. Okay? So that will be the marginal distribution of the allocation of the houses for each agent. Alright? And it's defined as the induced lottery is rho A of H is the summation of the probabilities of the matchings in which agent A gets house H. Okay? Now, this is like, so a matching is, in this domain, is nothing but what we call a permutation matrix. What's a permutation matrix? It's a degenerate random assignment matrix where each of the probabilities are either 0 or 1. So in each column, there will be at most one, exactly 1, 1. At each row, there will be exactly 1, 1. Okay? So in a way, I can convert this problem to this basic combinatorial problem where whether given a random assignment matrix, can I find a convex combination of this over matchings, over permutation matrices. And this was answered years ago by Birkhoff and von Neumann. Okay? For every random assignment matrix, there exists a lottery that induces it. Okay? So the lottery are the weights. Those are the convex combination weights. So give me a random assignment matrix, I can find a decomposition of it to deterministic matrices with the weights. So this says that I can write each random assignment matrix as a sum of deterministic matchings. So now, because of this, maybe, even for the random serial dictatorship, we may want to just focus on this row. Although it's defined through these lotteries, we can just look at its matrix because now I have a way to go the other way around. Although it may not be sometimes very practical. And there's an easy algorithmic way of constructing this lottery. Okay? So let's focus on the rows. All right? This is an example of a row. Okay, and this is one decomposition. Okay, everybody just looks at it for a minute. So with probability 1 over 2, 1 over 2, I mix these two matchings and I get this one. But it's not the unique way. So there could be many decompositions which may create a problem. So so this here we talked about how to choose the correct decomposition. Okay? So in this case we mix 4 matchings with 1 over 4, 1 over 4, 1 over 4 probability. We still get the same random assignment. Okay? So this is the lottery that we talked about. All right. So the only thing I want to say, important thing I want to say here is that random serial dictatorship, the lottery mechanism that we have defined as before, okay, so the mechanism is the following, okay, so this is the random serial dictatorship, okay, for each f, so if there are n agents, there are n factorial, there are different orderings, so I will get each ordering with the same probability 1 over n factorial, and I will randomly choose my f ordering and I will induce the permutation matrix or the matching induced by that. So it is this. Okay? So this is random serial dictatorship. So you can define parity efficiency, strategy proofness for this domain too, but here you gotta be careful for strategy proofness because we don't know the von Neumann-Morgenstern utility functions. So we don't know their expected utility. So one easy way to define for any utility function which is compatible with the ordinal preferences, we can say that for any utility function you may have, which has the same ranking, you will not profit in expected value if you reveal a different preference ranking to the system. For any of them. Okay? So if that is the case, we are going to say that lottery mechanism phi is strategy proof. Strongly strategy proof. Because for any realization, for any possible utility which is consistent with your ordinal ranking, by reporting a different ordinal ranking, you will not get a higher expected utility. This is the definition. Okay, so just notation, don't worry about that. So this is the fairness criterion. A lottery mechanism treats equals equally, or ETE property, if for any two agents, if they have the same preferences, they are assigned the same probabilities over houses. So if we have the same preferences, we get the same probability distribution, the same chances of getting all the houses. Okay. So you can show that random serial dictatorship is strategy proof, ex post efficient, meaning that it always finds a Pareto efficient matching, neutral, and treats equals equally. Okay. So now also there is non-Bossiness here, but non-Bossiness and strategy proofness are not together group strategy proof. So that's the reason I didn't even write non-Bossiness here, because as you said, it may be an objectable, in this context, property. So here's an open question. If you are theoretically minded, I don't recommend you pursue this, but if you want to, what is the full class of mechanisms which are strategy proof, ex post efficient, neutral, and treats equals equally? We don't know. Candidate, random serial dictatorship is the only one, but we don't know whether it's the only mechanism. Alright? So it would be a very unusual kind of mechanism if there is one other one, but we don't know. There could be. Alright, so I'm done with this because I would like to say only one thing about this, and then I would like to go to one other thing. So then we are done with allocation of houses in using random allocation, but there could be actually only one objection to random serial dictatorship. It looks like we are doing everything, but not so, it turns out. Okay, we are almost doing everything right, but there is one problem. So this could be a important shortcoming of random serial dictatorship. So think about this problem. Okay. Sorry. This problem. So agents 1 and 2 have identical preferences. Agents 3 and 4 have identical preferences. So the difference between their preferences is that agent 1 and 2 prefer H1 over H2 and H3 over H4, while agents 3 or 4, that order is reversed. Okay? So they like H2 and H4 more than H3. So let's use random serial dictatorship here. Okay? So if agent 1 is ordered first, he will always get H1. How many times can he be ordered first? Out of 24 possible orderings, he will be ordered first 12 times, right? Is that correct? No, that's not correct. 2, yes, I think it's correct. No, 1 over 4, he will be 6 times he will be ordered first. Yes. Okay, so he will get H1. Are there other instances he would get H1? Let's think about that. He would get H1 again if he's ordered second, right? If he's ordered second, and the first person is not agent 2. Agent 2 likes also H1. So we gotta calculate how many times he would be ordered second, but H2 is not the first. Okay. Once you do that, you get 1 over 12. No, 1 over 6, I think. And then you sum up them, and you get 5 over 12. Yes. So this is the 5 over 12 probability. You get house H1. With 5 over 12 probability, it's very similar house H2. I'm sorry, H3, you get 5 over 12 probability. Okay. So these are the same for agent 1 and 2. Alright. But what I would like you to look at is that is random serial dictatorship. So each of these agents receive house 2 with positive probability. You see? And it's the same for agents 3 and 4. They receive these houses with positive probability. But if they could trade these probabilities, everybody would be better off. Agent H2 gives his 1/12 lottery chance. In return, he will get 1/12 lottery chance for H1. Okay? So if they trade it, we would obtain this lottery. So in a way, this one ordinarily stochastically dominates, first order stochastically dominates this lottery. Right? Because the chance that I will get my top choice for as an agent 1 is higher than I will get my top choice here. The probability that I will get my 1 or 2 choices, first 2 choices, is higher or equal, which is 1/2, 1/2, with this lottery. The probability that I will get my top 3 choices are exactly equal or higher for in this lottery. Well, it is 1 here, right? I will definitely get one of my top choices, top 3 choices. If I'm H1, I will either get this, this, or this. My probability 1. While here, it's going to be 11/12 if you sum up those 3 probabilities. So it's higher. And for my last choice, which is H4, it is you get 1, top 4 choices. Of course, it has to be, and this is 1. But for me as agent 1, this first order stochastically dominates. For agent 2, the same. For agent 3, the same to agent 4. So this is a better outcome than random serial. Surprisingly, this is a better outcome. Because random serial dictatorship unnecessarily sometimes ranks agent 2, agent 1 after agent 2. So he gets H2. So let's trade the occurrences where agent 1 is ranked after H2 for the ones where agent 3 is ranked after 4. So on and so forth. So we could get a better outcome. And using this idea, Bogomolny and Moulin, Anna Bogomolny and Hervé Moulin, came up the idea of this ordinal efficiency. Okay, so this ordinally dominates this matching the way that I explained first order stochastic dominant, and they fully characterize the class of ordinally efficient outcomes in this domain. And they can be obtained very easily through some eating algorithm. So think about each house as a house of size 1, a cake, and everybody is at the same speed or different speeds are consuming these houses. Everybody eats their top choice. When a house is consumed, they go to their second top choice immediately and use whatever the speed they are assigned. Okay? If everybody is eating at the equal speeds, we would get this outcome. Why? Because everybody, 1 and 2 will attack house 1, 3 and 4 would attack house 2, right? And then they would consume house 1 at time 1/2, and house 2 is consumed at 1/2. Now, people's second choices are consumed, they go to their third choice. Agent 1 and 2 eat H3, agent 3 and 4 eat H4, and the eating ends at time 1. Okay? So it's very easy to show this is ordinally efficient and it treats equals equally. And it has some other properties, but it is not strategy proof. So one agent may start eating a house, for example, let's say my favorite house is very undesirable. Not many people want it. What I can do is that I can maybe start eating my second house. Maybe it's a very popular house. I can lie about my preferences. And I can get a share from my second, which doesn't affect my first houses. If I'm late because to eat my second choice, it will be consumed and I won't be able to get it. So in that sense, I can manipulate it. It's not, but it is always weakly strategy proof. There exists a utility for Neumann-Morgenstern utility function for which it is strategy proof. But for all the utility functions, it is not. Okay, I'm done. So, but let me tell you this. So random serial dictatorship is a much better, much more practical algorithm. So maybe we wanna let go its weakness of this ordinal inefficiency. And it turns out that there are several of papers, most notably by Utku and Fumito Kojima. Okay. In Econometrica recently, they show that asymptotically, when the agent size gets higher, actually random serial dictatorship converges to this outcome. If you have some regularity conditions, how you make the economy bigger and bigger, so RST converges to, this is called probabilistic serial outcome. In that sense, actually for large markets, we don't lose much by using random serial dictatorship. And it's very much simpler to implement. This is so difficult to explain to people on the field. First of all, people are already very averse about probabilities. If you try to explain that, look, you are going to eat your top choice school, etc., that's going to be a big problem. All right? So in that sense, RST will be almost ordinally efficient in a large market, so we don't have to worry about its inefficiency loss.
Can we show the other way around? Like
So, yes, so that's I was going to say, very good. So Kojima, so this was his actual PhD thesis with Manea. They have a paper, very nice paper in Journal of Economic Theory, I believe, in which they show that for larger markets, PS is non-manipulable in a strict sense, not. But again, for that you need to know the utility function domain. How many times should we replicate the economies so that we get exact non-manipulable?
So what is it? You need some right quantifier, but you can do that.
Yes, yes. And actually, if you don't care about exact non-manipulability, if you approximate, then you can get the reverse. But the reverse, yes, because the reverse is true to PS converges to RST, and RST is non-manipulable. In that sense, I think these two are very powerful results. Although RST has some weakness, it is not maybe that. So maybe RST is the correct mechanism if we have common ownership. But in the next lecture hour, you will see that Tayfun Sönmez, he will talk about problem domains in which maybe this common ownership is violated. A bit different from the ones we have defined. Maybe I don't have a private endowment, it's still a common endowment, but I have some rights to claim, even though. So in those cases, how do we solve this problem? How do we make allocation? So it will be an extension of RST, what they are going to propose. Okay? Well, thank you very much for attention. Hopefully in the afternoon I will see you for kidney exchange and more application of the housing market model and interesting applications of that model. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.